In. So you're all very welcome to the think tank. And you are all on the way in. Very good. And we're live on Facebook. So Zuck has let us in tonight, Damian. He doesn't always let us in. I don't know what the story is there, but he's been nice to us tonight.
He's got more important things on his plate tonight to block than.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So, Damian, thank you. So the people are still coming in, so I won't start into all the detail yet, but I just want to thank you for being here with us tonight. We really appreciate it. I know you're very, very busy, and you've a whole lot of stuff going on in your own business, and your mentor me and photography at Out Frontier. So we do appreciate you being here. But I thought it was important that we have a conversation with photographers about, not just in the UK, about what moral marketing is about, but outside of that, because there's a lot of photographers around the world, in Australia, the US, Canada, in Europe, who are saying, how can I give back to my community and how can I do something for others? So that's why we're here to talk about it. So what is moral marketing to you, and how did you come about with the concept of moral marketing?
Oh, right. That's a really good question. Moral marketing to me is about trying to be seen, to be done, doing the right thing in your own micro community. And what I mean by that is if you go back to sort of the 80s, 1986, when I started, there wasn't an awful lot you had to do to be able to survive as a business. You'd go and you'd give the local florist some business cards, and when somebody came in for a wedding bouquet, they'd give the client your card, and you'd give, it was a symbiotic relationship. And then, through the 90s and the noughties, you could see this changing, that people wouldn't do something to be nice. There had to be something in it for them. And, we've been through the whole sort of change in the way that we are as a people, without sort of wanting to sound political or anything like that, because it's nothing to do with that. It was, and then there were very, very famous photographers at that time teaching people how to attract clients with word searches, with general things. And I'd fallen upon doing exhibitions. And we used to have one venue local to us in a shopping precinct that was brilliant for us. We'd go in, we'd gather data by offering a prize. We'd have somebody stood there manning it to answer people's questions, and it sustained, grew, built our business. And unfortunately, and I'm probably going to get shot down in flames tonight. But these are broad shoulders. I don't really care. Where in our industry, when somebody has an idea that works, people latch onto it and they do it. But they bastardize it, they cut it down to try and make it easier. So where we used to genuinely give away a 2016 canvas, because in my head, it was far cheaper for me to give a 2016 away and, shaking somebody's hand picture in the local press for an eighth of a page. It was cheaper to produce the image than it was to pay for the advert. But then people came along and they realised that, well, do you know what? If we don't give anybody a main prize and just offer everybody a runners-up prize of a session, then we'll get all this work and it won't cost us anything. And unfortunately, the public aren't stupid. They see this, they realise this. And, very quickly the house of cards falls in. So we've tried to detach ourselves from the mainstream for a long time. The big thing that happened for us was very simply when my dad died. And it dawned on me that despite me wanting to take his picture for a long time, he only acquiesced because he knew he was dying. Because our family, my dad was a very, almost very Victorian gentleman. You didn't talk. He died of prostate cancer, but you don't talk about that because it's not the right thing to talk about. I mean, I don't remember my dad ever mentioning the words prostate cancer until he died. And then it wasn't, you know, it wasn't an open conversation. It was a very much a guarded thing. And
So Damien, just to touch on that, so because we've had this conversation before about your dad,
yeah,
and the fact that the most prized possession that you have in your home now nearly is the image of your dad, the photograph of your dad. That's the memory of your dad, and he resisted that for a long time, but it gave you a greater, even though you always believed in the power and importance of photography, it meant so much to you, right? Getting that photograph and getting that memory.
I mean, it's a love-hate relationship, Ronan, because I hate the picture. Because when I look at it, I know he's ill. I know he died 3 months later, and the picture actually won me a lot of awards because I thought I want to do something positive with this to rather than it just be a loss. So on one hand, I hate it because I can see that he was poorly, and on the other hand, I love it because now going on 10 years later, I'd have forgotten what he looked like. I can't hear his voice in my head anymore, and without that aid memoir, I'd be gone. And previously, before then, my aim was always, to go from social photography and step up to commercial photography, which we made a good transition in that. And then all of a sudden we're sort of flying high commercially, making a name for ourselves, flying all around Europe, doing, shoots here and shoots there and getting this name. And then I suddenly realised that actually, do you know what? It might be brilliant to go and shoot for L'Oreal or Aston Martin or do something for Olympus. But the real power, the real importance of what we do is in documenting our own social history. And instead of just being, well, I'm a photographer, I shoot weddings and portraits, it should be, I'm a photographer, I shoot weddings and portraits. I commit to history, your social history. And it suddenly dawned on me how much more important it was. And it made Leslie, my wife, and I decide to try a little bit harder in the social arena. And moral marketing grew out of that. Because again, honestly, let's be honest, and I'm sure again there'll be lots of people that won't like me saying this. There are lots and lots and lots of examples of photographers or national photography companies not being, let's say, maybe as honest or open as they could be. Everybody knows, and anybody with half a brain knows that your business model cannot be have £125 worth of product for 25 quid. You can do that as a short-term sampling strategy to say, hey, this is what we do, come and have a look. But you can't run a long-term business on that sort of strategy because it just isn't viable. So that's when we first decided, when a national chain came close to us doing that sort of thing, we decided, right, hang on, and this was the first stage of moral marketing. We can't compete with you, but what we'll say is this: give us 25 quid and we'll give you a session. And if we impress you, you then buy what you want. If we don't impress you, we'll give you the 25 quid back. It's just a cocky way of saying we know what we're doing.
So, and the other thing was that £25 is related to a purpose that's close to your heart, right?
Well, that's how it evolved from there. So back in the back end of the sort of the 2000s onwards, when Leslie got involved in the business, where I live used to be in Lancashire. There's a huge debate that we're in Cheshire. 1970 the boundaries moved. We're in Cheshire, but if you ask anybody locally, they'll say they're from Lancashire, and Lancashire people tend to be quite straight with what they say. And all of my successes in work have been from discussions with my grandma. So I can hear the voice in my head now, which makes me obviously sound slightly strange. But what we did was her saying the proof of the pudding's in the eating. So we were saying, we're this good, come and try us, because we know that you won't be disappointed. And we'd have done it for nothing. But the £25 deposit was really important because it stopped people just wasting our time. People saying, yes, we'll come, and then not turning up. And in the 10 years that we ran that promotion, we never once had to give a £25 back, but we always had it in cash when it came to the viewing, because if they didn't want anything, it was there's your 25 quid back. I'm sorry we've disappointed you. Can you tell us what we did that wasn't right so we can make it better for other people? That was the whole idea. And then as that grew and our business grew, and we didn't rely on the 25 quid, and then the local hospice were very helpful with me dad. And then 2 years ago, 3 it'll be now, my best friend got a brain tumour, and it was horrible for me, because he actually came, he knocked on my door, and I could tell there was something wrong. But he knew I was going away to the place we go on holiday for. We go the same 2 weeks every year, same place. And it was that horrible conversation that wasn't a conversation, where I knew Steve wanted to tell me something, but couldn't. So all he said was, have a lovely holiday in the end. And I went, all right, mate, I'll see you when we get back. And when we got back, I rang up and I said, can I speak to Steve? And his wife said, you can't. And that wasn't unusual, because he suffered from laryngitis all his life. So I just thought, he's got laryngitis again. I'll talk to him when he's better. And Kelly rang Leslie, and she said, I don't know how to tell you this, but basically in the 2 weeks that we'd been away, they'd confirmed he had a brain tumour and he'd lost the power of speech. So again, the same hospice I thought were relatively helpful with him. Others might differ in that point. And I just decided that, the sitting fee isn't what we're after. We're after somebody having a beautiful picture that sits on the wall. That's what we've aimed for since 1986. That's what we want. That's our product. That's what we want to sell. Just like you sell matted print in lovely boxes, we want to sell something that hangs on the wall. And it just reinforced to us that, we've done bits and pieces with charities and bits and pieces with donations previously for the 20 years prior. But I thought, Leslie and I were giving an amount of money every month to this charity anyway. And we just thought, right, we'll give every session fee we do to the charity. And that's what we'll do. And amazingly, it was almost mission impossible to give them the charity the fee at first, because they're like, well, why are you doing that? And to me, it just seemed a very natural thing and a very sensible thing to do. And that's what we did, and that's what happened. So from our social point of view, locally in our microeconomy, people knew what we were doing. They understood we were trying to help. Because, that's the bottom line. You can't do this with an aim to putting bums on seats. It doesn't work that way. You've got to really want in your heart to give something away, to better somebody else. I'm a great, I've read everything from The Secret to Think and Grow Rich to Maxwell Maltz's cybernetics, and all of them coalesce on one point and say, you know, the more you do, the more you give away, the greater your return will be. And even down to the Bible, you reap what you sow. And that's how it came about. But you can't, like anything decent, you can't do it with an ulterior motive. What happens is the trickle down effect is that people start coming to the studio, and they you know, people again might say, well, you're losing out on the money that people would pay for them naturally coming. Well, yeah, we are. But that's not part of our marketing mix. You know, we make that up in the sale of product rather than, you know, well, it's 150 quid to have an hour of my time. Because again, that's where we've always been wrong. If you look at how commercial photography is priced, where it's a day rate and the pictures don't have a huge cost, it's the time element. In social photography, we do it the other way around. We disguise the time element and we make it product cost. So to me, it was just a way of being a bit more open and a bit more transparent. But it has to be done with the aim of helping somebody, rather than with the aim of helping yourself. If you help somebody, the effect, the long-term effect becomes, obviously you get helped.
So I think what you're saying to me, Damian, is you're saying to me that...
Yeah, save me here, Ronan, I'm floundering.
I think what you're saying to me is that, and this goes back to purpose and what your purpose is and what your why is and why you're a photographer, which it goes beyond that. It's saying, how can I use my love of photography to help others? And you do it to help others first.
Yeah.
But when you help people... Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, it's our core business principle. Our core business principle, Paul, is the belief that everybody is entitled to a really good picture without hard sell, without any of the difficulty that we know exists. I mean, many years ago when I was a director of the MPA, I can remember being asked to go and talk to a member in Chester because the said member was locking the public in the studio after they'd come in for a viewing and not letting them out until they'd bought something. And that's gospelly true. Gospelly true. And I don't know why they sent me. Maybe I was the most local, maybe back then what would I have been? Maybe 25, 26. And I was big and brawny and young, and this fella wasn't going to clack me one anyway. But that's what was happening. And it just repulsed me. It made me think, well, that's not how I want to be. It's not how I want to run my business. You know, maybe it was the strangeness of the family that I was brought up in. But my grandma and my granddad were very helpful to people locally. You know, I can remember as a child, anybody that wanted to get into St Edward's College had to come and sort of speak to my grandma, and my grandma would help them get into the private school. It was just the way it is. So yeah, what you're saying is right. To me, it's just it's a natural extension of what we're generating anyway, to do something that's positive for somebody else. And when you verbalize it, it either makes you sound ridiculous, as I'm sounding now, or it makes you sound very, I don't know, non-self-serving. But I'm not that either. It's.
I think a lot of people, Damian, that I talk to, they struggle with this idea of when you do something for the greater good and you support something because it's part of your purpose, and when it's linked to a business in any way, that in some way that's wrong. And you know, what I see is that the business who can give most are those who have good businesses. So if you truly believe in your purpose and you truly believe that you're making a difference, you can make more of a difference by also having a good business.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that really opened my eyes was the first person I spoke to at the charity that we link ourselves with normally was a girl called Faye, and she was fantastic. It was her full-time job. As I understand it, any hospice gets a quarter of what they need from government donation. The rest they have to raise. So this girl needed to raise £3 million a year because it costs £4 million a year to run the place, and to get £1 million from central government, and they had to raise the rest. And it was Faye being really honest with me and saying, "Look, I know you need to make something out of this, because if you continue just to give, there will be a point when there's nothing left to give." And she said, "That's not where we want to be. We would rather have something, a small amount for a long time, rather than everything you've got over a short period." So because she was so open in understanding that people would purchase our product because they loved them, that made me realize that, well, actually, I'm not being sneaky. I'm not trying to sort of circumvent any system here. I'm just being honest. And the charity's smart enough to know that the busier I become, the more money they'll make.
And that's a really important point, because I think that a lot of people, they fear that piece. They fear that, that you are a business, but it's not about that. It's that you give with the purpose first,
Yeah.
and it doesn't matter if nothing comes back, but if it does, it allows you to be more purposeful and to even do more.
See, that's the little bit of magic. And this is where I'm worried that people are going to sort of be like, "Oh yeah, this tinfoil hat wearing loony." But if you genuinely give something away without expectation of something coming back, and you genuinely put your effort into doing something that's beneficial for somebody else, in my life, in my personal experience, I have never had it where something good hasn't happened to me, where there hasn't been I don't know what the right word is. A payoff isn't the right, isn't it? That sounds a bit too crass, but that's ultimately what happens. If you do something nice without the aim of getting something yourself, then the saying's karma's a bitch, isn't it? But karma's also really nice if you're really nice to other people. And I see this all the time, right at this moment today, we've got this horrendous stuff going on in America where people are, looking at Black Lives Matter. Well, yeah, they do. Black lives do matter. To me, every life does. I'm a little bit colourblind, I guess, because I don't see the colour of people's skin. I don't see the religion. I don't see their sexuality. I don't see what's their hang up. My grandma brought me up to always treat people the way that I want to be treated. So I'll treat you nicely if you treat me nicely, irrespective of whether you're a Muslim, a Jew, a Christian, black, Chinese, white. It really doesn't matter to me. And I don't judge by what I see, I judge by how I'm treated. And as long as people treat me the way I treat them and the way I wish to be treated, then all's good. I mean, my dad always said as well, "Walk softly and carry a big stick," but that's a different quote altogether. But yeah, I try and live my life by treating people the way I want to be treated, irrespective of what the pigeonholing life is.
Damien, Kevin asks a question. So he wants to know, what are the 3 benefits to our industry of gifting, or a give principle?
Well, I don't think it's just our industry. I think the benefit is you're just doing something nice. And if you work on it from the principle of what's the benefit, then you're coming at it in the wrong direction, in my personal opinion. If you're just doing something to help somebody or something else benefit, then, you know, good things generally happen to you. And I do know that sounds hippy trippy. You know, one of the best things I've seen during the pandemic is the way unexpected people do nice things. Like if you take another one of my mates who will remain nameless, but he looks as though he's the sort of person that would, you know, you wouldn't want to meet him in a dark alley. Let's just say that. But I know he's been doing shopping for little old ladies that couldn't go out. And it makes me laugh because I know he's sort of, you know, rumbling up to the door. You know, yeah, there's your shopping. That's all right. Yeah, if anything else you need, just give us a call. And then the little old lady's going inside and he's texting me and he's saying, bloody hell, I stood for 4 hours in the Tesco queue and she gave me £3 short. I had to put my own money to it. But he does it because you don't judge a book by its cover, do you? Just because he looks like that doesn't mean that that's how he is. And none of this, right, none of what I do is aimed at, there's no angle, there's no, if I do this, this will happen. What I do know through experience is if I do this, things will happen. But it's not the start of why I do things. And if it's the start, I mean, that's what I've been disappointed with, if I'm honest. When you know, you and I have been working on this Photography Without Frontiers project, you can tell the people that aren't there necessarily to help benefit the charity, they're doing it because they know, well, Damian said this happens and I'll put bums on seats. And I suppose ultimately, as long as we're raising money, that's great. And then the truth is, again, as long as we're helping people come out to the other side of the pandemic, that's great. I mean, I won't lose my temper until the point that I hear that somebody's locked somebody in the studio until they purchase something. I mean, the whole point of this is if the most valuable person in my business, statistically, are the 2 out of the 10 that just walk away with the freebie. Because I want them to walk away and say to people, yeah, it's lovely, isn't it? We couldn't afford it at the moment. But you know what? They didn't pressure us at all. They didn't try and sell us something. They weren't difficult. They weren't stroppy. All of a sudden, we didn't matter. You know, we still had another cup of tea and a sit down and a chat. Because I know that in every work situation, there'll be somebody that says, oh, do you know what? We're thinking of having a portrait made. And in that office, there will be somebody that immediately jumps down the throat and says, hey, well, we went to X photographers and they were awful. They tried to sell us something. They tried to sell us more than we wanted to. Because, you know, if we're honest, that's the reputation our industry has got. And I don't want to be part of that. So the people that don't purchase from me are almost just as important, if not more important, than those that do. Because I want people to have this honesty. I want people to know that this is true. I mean, I don't know if it was last year or the year before now. I saw that my mum was a school teacher, and she's always been hugely popular with some of the kids. And as she'll say to you, she always put more effort in with the bad kids than she did with the good kids. And I can't take my mum. My mum's not been a teacher now for since the 90s. But I can't take my mum anywhere without somebody going, all right, Mrs. McGill. And it's somebody that she taught. And it tends to be like the tough kids that remember her. And I saw a couple of years ago that I mean, I shouldn't say this, I won't put any names to this. Her favourite student had become a granddad. And she said, you need to get in touch with him and invite him into the studio. And we invited his grandchild into the studio. We did a shoot for them. And we gave them what we promised we would give them. You know, there was no, no, they've not bought anything else. How disappointing. Because that wasn't the aim. The aim was whatever's happened now is that there's a Damian McGillicuddy portrait in that house. And other people will be seeing it. So it's a form of advertising, if you like. And eventually they will come back. I mean, I've had the horrible thing happen in my career where I've been doing a beauty shoot for somebody. And I've sort of said, what are you going to do with these? And the girl said, oh, I need two images. And I'm like, oh, okay. And she actually said, I need two 2016s. And I'm like, oh, that's very specific. She said, yeah, one for me, one for my mum. And this was quite a racy, cool, you know, edgy picture I was taking of her. And I'm like, and I must have done that sort of, ooh, what are you doing that for face? And she said, yeah, I need to have one that matches the other one you've done of me. And I'm like, no, don't remember you coming in. And she said, yeah, I was sat on a little red chaise long. And as soon as she said that, it whipped me back 20 odd years to a prop we used to have. And I thought, oh my God, I shot you as a baby. And here I am now shooting something cool and edgy and boudoir-y and sexy. And you're going to get your mum a copy of it to sort of show the difference as well. And that, you know, I always wanted to be the man that ladies' mums warned them against. Not the sort of, I feel safe to do this with you and you shot my baby portrait. It made me feel horrendous for days because I thought, oh, I'm not as cool as I think I am. Which is, you know, that's just the story of my life. But no, to go back to the question, if you see this as an advantage to your business, you're coming at it from slightly the wrong angle. You
okay, I
do it because it's worth doing.
I may have put the question the wrong way because, Kevin, I'm going to read it exactly so that I'm not scanning and trying to summarize. So he says, sorry, not worded the way I wanted. Given what has been said earlier about how our industry has given it a bad name, there's good things to shift our approach. Giving is core to my mindset. So I think what Kevin is asking is, what's our opinion of what we think consumers think about our industry because of our approach.
Oh, right.
And what,
right, that's dead easy to answer. I think most consumers think that the industry is a little bit of a rip-off.
Okay, so because I know
how it is, you know, we're out for trying to hoodwink people with clever marketing strategies, and they wouldn't come into the studio and see us without what's going on, you know, without trying to bring people in surreptitiously. And, you know, I'm the same. I'm the same. You know, it's the equivalent. I can remember going out for a meal with my wife years ago, and the restaurant was trying the policy of, instead of giving you a bill, pay what you think the meal was worth. And statistically, people paid about 30% more than they would have if they'd have been charged the price. And that was all down to the fact of, you know, as the waitress was bringing you a piece of key lime pie or whatever it was, you know, as she was cutting it at the table, you know, she can see you salivating, she moved the knife a bit more and made it a bigger piece. It's all about customer service and simply treating the people the way that you want to be treated. And unfortunately, I think with an upward climb in our industry is too inward looking. It looks at itself. And again, this is not me being hypocritical, because I've used, you know, 17 fellowships and 13 Photographer of the Year awards to drive my business. But I've used it as the shiny thing to say, hey, look at me, not the thing to continuously talk about. Because the sad fact is, and this is the bit that most people in our business don't get, is our clients do not care one jot about us. They're not interested. They don't, they're not buying a Damian McGillicuddy portrait because it's a Damian McGillicuddy portrait. Well, some people do, but they're buying into the story, if you like. What most people are most interested in isn't you, but what you can do for them. And if you can fulfill their need, then by a process, you get what you want, which is your need being filled, in other words, being paid. I suppose it's it's bartering with money, isn't it? They want your service and your attention and your ability. And if you give them what they want, in return, they'll give you the product that you want, which is the shiny gold stuff or the foldy paper stuff. And it's just that simple. And I feel a bit exposed now because I know that there'll be, other than my mum listening, maybe one or two other people that are sitting there thinking, right, actually he's completely bonkers. And I know this is a revolutionary thing to say, but I don't think our industry comes from the right direction at all. It just doesn't. And if we want to not just survive, but prosper, we've got to evolve. We've got to change. We've got to look at everything we do and re-engineer it for the benefit of the client, not for the benefit of us, for our bragging rights, for whatever, because nobody cares. They only care about what can you do for them.
And that's absolutely true. And it's not just of our industry, it's true of every single industry. And that's the mindset we have to adopt. But Damien, just to get back to the industry-wide, so you think we haven't done a great job in the UK on that? I look at America and we see something similar because PPA have done a lot of work to try and what they call bridge the gap with the consumer, because their research shows that there's a disconnect between the value that the consumer sees and what the photographer is trying to portray. But there was I don't cry that easy, but I cried recently. I was actually on a Zoom call with some friends in America. And one of them told me, who's a photographer, that in the US, when they were opening up a number of the states, that they put tattoo artists, and I have nothing against tattoo artists, yeah, they create beautiful art, but for those who want that. But my point was they were putting them ahead of photographic studios for the importance of the mental health of society. And yet we know, like tattoo artists, they have to get up real close and, they have to pierce the skin and all that, which we don't have to do in our industry. And yet they thought they should open ahead of ours. Does that not say it all?
Yeah, it does. So that's exactly what I was going to say to you. Does that not say it all? We've allowed ourselves, because it's nobody else's fault, it's our fault. My gran always said, before you point the finger, remember there are 3 fingers pointing back at you. We've allowed ourselves to become irrelevant because we're instead of telling the consumer what we can do for them. I can remember being sat in meetings 30 years ago when I was a chairman of one of our national organisations, and the guy from I won't mention names. The guy from Kodak had come in and he'd say, "How much is the guy from Fuji giving you?" And he'd go, "Oh, 40,000 quid." And he'd go, "Well, there's a check for 50,000 quid." Woo-hoo. And I'd say, "Excuse me, the one thing we need to do," because I was 21, 22, 23, people looked at me as though I was an idiot. But time's proven me to be right. Because what I used to lobby for was, instead of giving us this money, could you print something on the film box? And they're like, "Well, what do you mean?" And I'm like, "Well, could you put something like, if you want to have great pictures from your summer holiday, buy this Kodak or Fuji film, But if you want truly memorable pictures, hire a professional photographer. That's all I wanted them to do. And I always got shouted down because I was young. What do you know? And because they'd rather have the big check so they can do an awards dinner or do something fantastic with it. And that, you know, I'm not criticizing what went on at that time. I'm just saying maybe we've not been as far reaching in our sight as we should have been. And we're getting what we deserve now. Now, if you're sat there at home listening to this, then A, you need to make friends and get out a bit more, because listening to me and Ronan is a sad, sad thing. But more importantly, if you're finding yourself that you're not getting the sessions that you want, if you're not as busy as you should be, if you're not making the sales that you think you deserve, well, the truth is, when I'm mentoring, when there's people on Mentor Me, right, I have never once had one person in 13 years that I've turned around to and gone, oh, do you know what, you're right, you deserve a far greater amount from the general public. Because invariably it's been something that's been wrong within that person's business, not the locality that's, you know, causing the issue. I mean, one of the big issues that we've got is, since we had the rise of international speakers, and this is, right, this, I might be killing my speaking career here. So if you've got some, you know, sound effects to go with this, like, you know, one of those whistles, then that would be a good thing. But, you know, I might be killing my speaking career here, but I'm just going to be honest because you asked me to be honest. We've had years and years in this country of Americans and Australians and Kiwis and people from all over the world coming to us and saying, unless you're making 2,000 quid a session, you're not valid. You know, you deserve more. You need to sell, well, a box of prints for 2,000 quid, and that's the way you do it. And I totally rail against that. If you look at, we did a one-to-one for somebody not so long ago, and they happened to live in Norfolk. Now, because I did a one-to-one with them, I know that the average take-home pay in Norfolk is 300 quid a week. So if you're suddenly asking for, let's say it's £1,000 because it's easier on my maths and my brain. If you're asking them to spend £1,000, in reality, what you're saying is my service, is my product, is what I'm giving you worth 3/4 of all the blood, sweat and tears you've put into work this month? And I don't know anybody that that's true of. You know, is what I offer worth that much? No. It amazes me that people collect my work. You know, it amazes me that there are, you know, Peter Jones from Dragon's Den has bought managers of their stores, you know, limited edition McGillicuddy prints from, you know, stuff I've done with Olympus. That amazes me. It amazes me that people desperately wanted them, that people collect my work, and that's not me being sort of false, it just does. But if you're sat at home thinking, do you know what, my business isn't quite what it should be, then now is the time to really look inwardly and say to yourself, am I offering what my microeconomy, because that's one of the other things I try not to do. You know, I've read so much and so many things that I know all the cool buzzwords, but we need to make them real to people. So your microeconomy is just your local business. That's it, your local patch, your area, you know, the people here. So the likelihood is, if I set up in Norfolk and wanted to sell products of £2,000, £3,000, £4,000 levels, it is possible, but I'd have to work 5, 6, 7, 10 times harder to unearth a very small seam of people that have that disposable income. Whereas it's much easier to take a bigger view and decide, well, actually, if I'm selling a £500 product, I'm going to sell a damn sight more of that than I will do at £1,000 or £2,000 or £4,000. And that's not devaluing yourself and your business. That's just being bloody realistic. You know, if people can't spend what you want them to spend, and you don't have the marketing skill, or more likely in our industry, aren't prepared to pay for the marketing skill to get you that tiny, tiny, pernicious niche, as our American friends would call it, then you've got to look at a slightly wider, more accessible market. And that's about looking at what people earn in your locale. You know, we all know that, you know, you should spend at least 3 months' salary on a diamond engagement ring. But what most people don't know is where that comes from. And that comes from De Beers, the people that maintain diamond stock. It was a marketing slogan that they started decades ago. So it's just, you know, it's things like, you know, why do girls get married in a white dress? Purely because Queen Victoria did, and it became a fashion trend. And it's nothing to do with virtue and all the stuff that we fairy tale romance with it. That's just stuff that people like me, marketeers, have put together. You know, why are diamonds so expensive? Well, it's because 95% of the amount that they dig out of the earth, they keep in vaults. They're not available for the general populace. So therefore, they make a self-imposed shortage, which makes them worth what they're worth. You know, they're no more uncommon than lots of other gemstones. It's just that they were dead clever in the fact that they said, well, everything we dig out of the ground here, we're going to keep to one side. And so, nothing more than marketing.
So Damian, I've probably a greater insight than most of our viewers because I've been involved with you on this project. But, you know, when we were talking about photography without frontiers, and you came up with that with that name for the initiative, the charity initiative,
yeah.
Can you just talk about, like, one of the purposes that you've said is that our industry has a really bad reputation, but that wasn't even, but that wasn't even the reason for this. The primary reason for this was to recognize the NHS heroes, right? Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, the way that I've put this across to anybody that's listened to me is, blimey, Ronan disappeared.
I feel like I'm on Star Trek now. I don't know how I've done
that. You feel all alone and isolated.
I am here, but I'll turn off my background and I might reappear.
What's worse, Ronan, is you now just a voice in my head. Right, you know as well as I do that anybody that I've spoken to about this, I've said there'll be a three thing happen. The first and the most important thing, we just don't want to show that our houses are decorated the same.
The same colour.
We've got a job lot, everybody. No, the primary function has been to raise money for the NHS. And I chose NHS Charities Together for one simple reason, that it's a combination of 140 charities. So it covers the whole of the UK, and it gets down to grassroots levels. And that was the important thing, because I didn't want, you know, it annoys me when you look at things like comic relief that we all pay millions of pounds into every year. But if you look at comic relief, they've got, last time I looked, because I don't donate to them anymore. This was another reason why we chose local charities. Because when I last looked, they had 98 million quid sat in a bank account. What good's that? It's not doing anybody any good. You know, it's much better to buy the guy that's sat outside Tesco, assuming it's honest and true, that needs a sandwich. It's better to buy him a sandwich and a hot drink than it is to give money to something that's national. But NHS charities together, the great thing about them was that they make the money go down to grassroots. I mean, you saw the email that they sent me the other week, which basically said that they've spent some of the money thus far raised on iPads and things so people can converse with the family and the loved ones when they can't come into contact with one another because of coronavirus. And a lovely thing that they call the wobble room, which, and I need a wobble room, honestly I do. It's just a room where the NHS staff can go and just, I've had enough. Just you know, kick something, scream, sit down, sleep, chill out. Just a safe space, basically. And I think that's an amazing thing to do, to know that all the photographers that have decided that photography without frontiers is a good thing to get involved with, to know that they're helping on such a micro level, it's got to be fantastic. And everything I've written and everything I've verbalized has said, if you don't want, I mean, you know, right, you know, we've had conversations where I've gone, I'm going to give that person 40 quid. So it's the 20 quid back that they've donated themselves. I'll double the money because I don't think their attitude is right for this campaign. And you've been the voice of reason and said, just calm down a minute, you're a bit hot-headed. I'm sure that's not what they mean. Let's see what happens. And, you know, you've been proven to be a very good foil for me in the fact that I get very immediately emotional and think, right, hang on, why are you saying this? You know, you're in this for yourself. Because ultimately, as soon as you do something like this and you don't have a good intention, it all falls apart. And I don't want to be part of that. I want something that raises money for the people that have absolutely put their lives on the line. And irrespective of your political leaning or what you believe, I know people I went to school with that are getting up every day and making a difference in our community as doctors, as nurses, as key workers. You know, I've come to believe my Amazon delivery man is probably the most important person in my life. If I don't see him every day and give him a little wave, there's something going wrong. And this has turned everything upside down. So when this baby was left in our laps, you and I had a choice, and I remember this conversation. It's either we just jack it all in and walk away, or we make it work. And because I'm arrogant, and because I'm stubborn, and because my name had been used out there, I said, right, well, that's it. I'm going to make it work. Are you going to join me? And because you're very similar to me, I think, you said, yeah, let's get it done. Let's roll our sleeves up and just get it done. Assuming that things happen like this. One, first and foremost, we're raising money for NHS heroes. Two, the most valuable byproduct is that we are making our industry appear nicer than it actually is. We're sort of cleaning our act up, if you like. And three, it may or may not happen that you will get sessions out of this. And I've said that all along. I've said it to anybody that will listen. In fact, if I'm honest, I don't care if you get sessions out of it. The annoying thing is, I know that you will. I know that people will get sessions, and you know that they will too. I mean, you only have to look at the way it's going now, and I think in the last 36 hours there's been 13 donations made. So that's 13 sessions that people want photography. And this is a great opportunity for the great British public, because the truth is, lots of people want pictures. They just don't know where to go. They don't know where to go that is safe and ethical, and they're not going to feel pressured into doing anything. Where here, they've got the perfect opportunity, because people can come and experience a session and then hopefully have something that means so much to them that they want to have a memory of it forever. Not just a digital memory as we're giving away, but something to look at. And if people don't get that, then that's not the public's fault. That's our fault as photographers. We've not shown them a good enough service, a good enough time, and a good enough product. So no, I would be very annoyed if people think that this is being done just to put bums on seats, because that is the last and the least most important thing to me. Although I know it will happen, although we can prove it's happening now. The thing is, moral marketing is something I'd like to take forward. I'd like to make it a bigger thing. I'd like to be doing something next year for a different charity if things have cleared up. And you yourself know the immense amount of time and effort that you, me, Leslie, Lee, Damo, all our team have put in to make this happen. You know, the database alone that Leslie's built and controls. Well, you know, how many 3 o'clock in the morning phone calls or text messages did I send you going, well, this isn't bloody right, this needs to be sorted, we need to fix this. And we've not willed it into existence. We've beaten it into existence. We've dragged it, you know, into being something that's a real thing, basically because, you know, we were left holding a baby, and we didn't want to look stupid, I suppose. So, you know, I mean, you're interviewing me here, but you are just as much a co-conspirator in this as me. And, you know, I've seen you at trade shows for years. And, you know, we've nodded and we've been polite and we said hello and I like your box and, you know, this is lovely and how's work going? But it's not until I've got involved with you on this level that I realise what a genuinely decent bloke you are. And if we're honest, there's one message I send you virtually every day that you rail from. What I say to you, do you know what, mate? You need to slow down a little bit. I think you're doing a bit too much. I don't want you to run out of steam. You know, but if anybody, you know, with the photography without frontiers, because I know how hard that's been for me and Leslie. But you're not just doing that. You're doing a think tank. You're doing BSA. You're doing everything. You know, if there's ever anybody that should be acknowledged, it should be St. Ronan of photography. And I know you'll go, oh no, that's not the way it should be, but it's true, it should be. And if you're honest, I tell you virtually every day, slow down a bit, don't run out of steam. Because it amazes me the amount of things that you're doing. And it amazes me that you're doing it for the good of other people, because that's not what you see every day anymore in our world.
Yeah, Damian, if I could just say something on that. So, because people ask me about this all the time, is Ronan, why do you do the few bits you do and all that? And, you know, I've had people say to me, Ronan, why are you even in this industry? You know, you could make a fortune in the financial sphere or the technology sphere. But I've explained to a number of people, and there's maybe people on here who don't know this story, but for me, photography is really, really important. And I have 4 kids, and one of my kids had a really hard time coming through life. And I'm a bit like the cobbler's son in that we didn't have a lot of photography in our home. And then I read something about, the difference that photography makes to people. And it's actually based in research that children who are in a home where their family life is captured in photography actually have a higher self-esteem. And one of my daughters went through a really hard time of, I won't even go there, but it was really, really bad, really, really bad. We didn't know whether she was going to stay with us or not on this earth. And every day after I read that research afterwards, I went, you know what? We don't realize as an industry the important job we do and the difference that we do and how we don't do the same job as the medical profession. Like they put their lives on the line. We don't have to do that. But we do actually, the work that we do that invokes a smile actually does create a healthier society in mind, body, and spirit. And I can't take a photograph from Adam. I can't even take a selfie. But once I realized that, I said, my mission in life is to ensure that as many people smile as possible and feel better about themselves through seeing creative, professional photography decorating their home, whether that's in a box or an album or on the wall. And I said, the only way I can do that is I know a little bit about business, I know a little bit about marketing, and maybe I can help photographers with that piece. So that's why I do this. And I don't regard it as work. That's why I feel that I won't run out of energy, because it's actually more than work to me. It's actually a passion and it's a purpose. And I don't regard it as work. It doesn't stress me. What stresses me is the perception that our industry has. So I saw this as an opportunity to work with you, and there was supposed to be others, and then now they're not involved for totally their own decision, to see, is this something that we can actually give back to people who have put their lives on the line? Is this something that will help people realize the importance photography makes to people? And in some way, can it help, get rid of those stories that we hear about tattoo artists being regarded as more important for the mental health of society than photography? Because while they do an important job for a lot of people, I think what we do is even greater than that. So that's why I'm involved. But I'd like to come back to the photography without frontiers.
Can I just interject there? Because that's the first time I've heard that story. And that actually makes a lot of sense to me now. I mean, my eldest boy, we nearly lost because he got encephalitis. And I totally understand where you're coming from. Just before shutdown, we had one of my youngest boy, Hayden's classmates mums come into the studio. And it was because Leslie had said to her, look, come in and we'll give you a complimentary session. Because her little boy, the boy that's in our little boy's class, is adopted. And his skin is a different colour to the rest of the family. And he's feeling left out that he's not in this portrait on the wall. So Leslie said to the mum, just bring him down. Come on, bring him down, get the family in. Let's do another one for you. Let's make it right. And what you've just said to me is answered a lot of questions I've had in my mind about why you're so energetically dynamic. And so, there aren't many people that follow the same thoughts and ethos that I do. And I'll be dead honest, in the beginning of this, I thought, what's Ronan's angle? And then the more I've got to know you, I've thought, well, Ronan doesn't have an angle. He's truly, the reason we do this is because we've got nothing better to do. And it doesn't matter if there's 100 or 1,000 people listening to us now. The fact that we've connected on the same moral beliefs, even deeper than we had done just for doing this, has got to be a massive win-win-win. And if that shows other people that there's a benefit in doing this, if it changes just one person's mind in our industry, then we've got to have succeeded. We've got to. Either that, a very low threshold of success, one of the two.
I always love talking to you, Damien, and we've gone over time already, but I do think it's important that we outline to people as to how it works and the systems that we've built and the whole process. So we are asking photographers that have got involved to direct people to this landing page, which basically outlines what it's all about, why we're doing it. It shows in real time how much money has been raised, and we encourage the consumer to make a donation from £10, just £10, and in return for their donation for showing their support for the NHS Heroes, we are gifting them a session, a photographic session, along with a social media file that they can share on social media to show that they also share our values of supporting the NHS and this charity, right?
Yeah, and then the photographer, if nothing else, will get the logo alongside the Photography Without Frontiers logo. As you can see, there's a rough copy of mine there. So already in the exposure, that's a win for the photographer. If nothing else happens, that's a win for the photographer.
Because we know that people who have purpose and help out in their community, no matter what that is, that you become recognized in your community as a leader. Yeah. And then when people in your community want a service that you have, you don't have to do the hard sell. You know, you've proven that. It's not about hard selling, but you're front of mind that because you have supported the community, they want to support you too, right?
Absolutely. You become a very nice person. And the one absolute unshakable tenet in any sales and marketing book I've ever read is people buy people first. So this is your opportunity to become the people that people want to buy first, the people that people like.
And we were very, excuse me, we were very careful when we created this that number one, the photographers that got involved, we asked them to make a donation up front of £20.
Yeah.
And we also insisted that for every session that they do where the consumer donates £10, that they also make a £5 donation after that session has taken place.
It's all about raising money for the NHS.
Yes. And we made sure then that you and I got all this money so we could have a nice holiday, right? I'm joking. We don't go near the money.
The money goes straight to Just Giving, and we have no access to that whatsoever.
And then, so all the money goes there. So we've put together this whole system, all of our time, all of our efforts of our teams to make this happen.
Yeah.
And there's no administration fee from us or anything like that. It's all going to the charity.
Yeah, I mean, I did see people complaining when Colonel Tom had money taken from what he'd raised by Just Giving. But these guys are offering a service. We've willingly come to them. Well, actually, we did the research, didn't we? I presented you, Leslie, and myself with a little paper I'd done on that Lee had done for us, actually, on which platform like Virgin Money, Just Giving, and all the other ones were the best one for us to use because they gave the best return back to the charity. And that's why we're with Just Giving. We actually did our due diligence first to find out who's going to take the least out of the money. Now, the only time I'll be upset is if we do earn millions and millions and millions of pounds. Because if we don't get an island next to the one Colonel Tom's bought for himself, I'll be very disappointed. But no, that's just joking. We have no access to this. Once you've given that money, and the other thing that's important on the screen now, Ronan, is that little bar that says 15%, £1.50. Because when you donate £10, you have a choice that we either have £1.50 taken out of that £10, or you can make your £10 donation £11.50, and the charity gets the full £10.
And the £1.50 then is Just Giving's charge for using their systems, right? It doesn't go
Yeah.
near
There's not.
Photography Without Frontiers, just so people know that.
Yeah, this is actually, just to be totally transparent, right? This is actually physically cost both you and I real money.
A lot of money.
Real hard. Well, all right, let's be really honest. More than we wanted to pay and more than we expected to pay. But we'd gone so far down the rabbit hole that, you know, it would have been more of a waste of resources not to continue than it would be to put the extra little bit of time, effort, and money in and do what we did. So hopefully, you know, if we can raise 10 grand, I'll be delighted.
Me too. Me too. And after the consumer makes a donation, then we bring them back into our system to say thank you. And so thank you for donating. We tell them how much we've raised. And this is the next step then that they click on to find a photographer nearest to them to book their session. So when they click here, then this brings them then to the directory where they can search by postcode or city to find the nearest photographer. So let's just put something in here. What should we put in, Damien? Any ideas?
Well, put my postcode in WA8 0 November Lima.
I got that right? 0 NL. Yes, I think I do. And they click search now. And then the internet's a little bit slow here. So it brings up all the photographers who are within a 20 or 30 mile radius of that postcode.
It does. I was discussing this with Leslie actually today, that it's set at 30 miles at the moment. And I think we probably need to reduce that to 20 miles.
Right.
But what Leslie has done for people that are in Scotland or people that are in big geographical areas is she's put into this, and I don't quite know how this works, so bear with me, but she's added to the system that we originally built an ability for each individual photographer to touch or to highlight areas that they work in that are not in the natural postcode. So for example, people in Scotland were, you know, they have an office, but their office isn't where they generally do all the work. They can then highlight where they do the work, and that's where the search will go, other than just the postcode. Because if I look down here, I know Dollymore Photographer is in Chester. I know the little portrait studio is in Whitchurch, and you know, so they're probably an hour's drive away. So whether we need to sort of lessen it or not was something I was discussing with Leslie, but that doesn't mean, you know, for those that have already joined, that if we do lessen it, if you're in Norfolk and you work in Suffolk, so your postcode's Norfolk but you worked in Suffolk, you can actually highlight where you work in Suffolk and it will still come up in the search, which I don't understand how she's done it. She's far cleverer than me. But that's what she's done, and that's how it works.
So when the consumer then, just to recap, so they go to the page, they see what it's all about, they click through, they make the donation on Just Giving, that brings them to the thank you page, thanking them for the donation. They click on the link, it brings them through here. They can search by postcode, they can see the photographers, they can go into more detail and view the full listing of the photographer, and then they can send them a message, they can contact them on social media, and then the photographer then asks them to forward a copy of the donation that they've made that they received by email from Just Giving, and then they book them in for the session when it's safe to do so.
Photographer then gives them a promise, gives them a voucher basically, and the voucher says as soon as it's safe and the right time to start working again, because again, here, you know, we can work from the 15th of June, but not every studio will be opening, so that doesn't matter. To be part of this, I have two high-risk people in my household, so I'm not opening my studio on the 15th of June. my plan is actually for around September. And as long as I'm honest and transparent with the people that come to me and I say, listen, guys, here's your promissory note. And your promissory note basically says, as soon as it's safe for us to open, we'll book you in. So they're not left hanging without having something, but it gives the photographers then their own flexibility to decide when it's safe for them to go back to work. I mean, I understand just because it's not safe for me and my family doesn't mean other people can't go and have their work taken now. But it should be photographer's choice.
So if there is a photographer who's watching who wants to get involved, I've just shared a link to this page. And what you need to do is scroll to the very end and you'll see a bright blue button that says, if you're a photographer want to get involved, click here. We'll ask you to fill out a form of interest. Then we will contact you to make your £20 donation to get involved. And then we will invite you into our secret group on Facebook, where we share all the knowledge as to what you should do, how you should do it, and everything else. And we've had some really good news in the last couple of days since we launched, Damian, that a number of the photographers involved have got some local radio coming up, right?
Yeah. I just wanted to point out quickly that 20 quid to get involved it doesn't come to me or you. It goes straight into the Just Giving pot and goes to charities together. And yes, we have had people at local radio have contacted through the press release that we wrote for them to say, look, we'd like you to do a bit of a story on this. And that's amazing because, they've never been in that position before. So obviously what we're doing, how we're telling them to promote the charity is already showing something beneficial for them personally. That's brilliant.
And we don't mind whether, once it's safe to do so, if people are asking, can I do it outside or can I do it on doorsteps or can I do it whatever is right for you and your business. All we ask is that you sign up to the ethos of the whole thing, that it's about raising money for the NHS charity, number one. And that's the primary aim of this whole thing. And hopefully a side benefit of that will be, it will improve the brand positioning of the whole photography industry in our communities. It will improve your brand position as a business in your local community. But we're not doing it for that. We're doing it to raise money for our NHS heroes.
Yeah, let's be honest. There's a thing called charity fatigue now, and that's another reason, right, we donate the sessions, because charity fatigue is basically the general public getting fed up of just giving money. So by swapping them money, so they get something out of it, i.e. a session, there's a greater uptake because people are getting rewarded for donating. So would I rather do that than have half the people throw a tenner in? Of course I would. I'd rather have people coming in, seeing what we do, feeling as though we value their donation, we value what they've done for us in supporting the charity that we believe in. Then it's only right we give them something back. It's only right that we say, thank you very much, that was brilliant. Let me show you what I can do and let me give you something. And then we physically give them the social media image, the idea being that hopefully we can turn a little corner of Mark Zuckerberg's world and photography frontiers blue. Which is the big aim that we all celebrate together. And if anybody buys anything or wants to buy anything from you, then that's the least important part of the process. But you and I are both wise enough to know that will happen, because it's just the way night follows day. If somebody's gone to the lengths of getting, the 3 kids and dad ready to come and have a picture taken, or clean the horse so they can have a picture with the horse, there is a good chance that they'll make a purchase. And I said to you before, there's only one time I'll get angry, and that's if I hear of anybody who's taken part in our charity initiative that is hard selling that wonderful member of the public that's made a donation. You know, at that point, I might just jump in the car and have a face-to-face with them, and explain that this is not what it was about. It's about just doing, it's about making a change, isn't it? It's about saying, look, the old way, the way that we've done it for years, well, it's hardly made brilliant things for us. So maybe there's a new way of doing things, and maybe it's a better way of representing ourselves. And this is all we're trying to do.
Damian, thank you so much as always. It's been a real pleasure working with you and Leslie and the whole team on this. And we're only getting started. And hopefully we can raise loads and loads of money for NHS charities. You know, and I don't even benefit from the NHS. I'm in Ireland. So, but I love to see our industry giving back. You know, I think it's really, really important. It doesn't matter, as you said, what our nationality is, what our religion is, what our sexuality is, what the color of our skin is. You know, it's about helping people.
If you're really sick, though, at any one time, Ronan, you can always have our spare bedroom. And
okay.
To an NHS hospital. There'll be a benefit, don't worry.
Thank you, Damian. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We really appreciate you all for joining us. We know we ran over time, but we thank you for sticking with us. And if anyone wants to get involved, I've shared the link in the comments there, and I'll share the link underneath the video in both the Photography Think Tank tomorrow and also in 3XM Insiders. So bye for now. Thank you, Damian.
Pleasure.